Supposedly on YouTube and Facebook. We've been up live on OpsLens for about a minute. Everybody, welcome. We're going to be recording Polite Society Podcast episode 677 here in a second. As you can see, Rob Pincus is going to be our interview subject tonight. Wow. Why am I getting me back in my ear at a very long delay?
I can hear it too.
I don't know. I think it's gone now because I don't hear me coming back. No, now I hear me. Rob, have you got me on speaker in your room?
I am. Is it coming from me?
I think it is. Can you turn the speaker down just a little bit?
I can. Then I can go on earbuds if that helps.
I think it will. All right. Well, he's doing that.
How? Now.
All right, let's check.
All right.
I think that may have killed it. Check 1, 2. Nope, I'm still getting it.
I was hoping it was going to be my fault this time.
I did hear a little bit of an echo before we started.
I'm getting everybody's back. Everybody's audio is coming back at me. All right, let me see here. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. C&T says that somebody may have an open tab. Make sure that somebody is that everybody's got YouTube and everything else muted.
Yes, everything is muted. Nobody else.
Okay. And I still get you back at about a second delay, Charlie.
All right, I don't know what's going on.
Because I get no delay.
I don't either.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't have any delay. Does that mean it's on you? Maybe is it on your end, Charlie? If you're the only one getting it.
Maybe. Let me sign out and sign back in. All right. Bye.
You're back.
Going once, going twice.
Still. Nah, I'm hearing me still. I'm hearing Charlie still.
I mean, I can go in and out. Were you hearing it before I joined in?
No, I wasn't.
All right, let me jump out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's longer than a second.
Yeah. That's annoying because I'm still getting it with him frozen. Let me see if he's. Now he's disconnected and I'm still getting it. Let me find out why I might be getting it. I gotta open audio mixing. Audio test, audio check, 1, 2. It is not Rob. I just muted him. I'm going to keep going here. Audio test, audio check, 1, 2. And still searching for it. Where am I going? Check, test, 1, 2. Doggone it. I think I may have cured it. I think
I don't hear anything.
I don't know. No, now I get it. Be patient with me, guys. I'm still working on it.
Hanging tight.
I'm going to turn everything off except John and Charlie and Rob and me. Everything else is getting turned off. All right. I have everything except for the 4 of us killed. I'm still getting it.
All right. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to log out, like all the way off rather than just refresh.
Okay. Doggone it.
All right. Nope.
And Roderick is commenting, Facebook sounds okay. I think I may know where it is. Just a minute. Maybe on my part. Just a minute, guys. Audio test, audio check, 1, 2. Hi, welcome to the Polite Society podcast. I'm broadcasting without pants. And it killed it. It was
There we
on my
go.
end.
That'll scare it straight.
All right. So I think, gentlemen, we are ready to fly. Rob, just to let you know, I've got you scheduled for 2 blocks. When we're done with your second 15-minute block, you're free to log off. If you want to hang out the whole show and comment on the political stuff, you're welcome. But if you want to bail, and I know you're busy, you can certainly do that. All right. Let me get rid of this guy here. And John and Charlie, we're ready to fly on our end.
Let's do it.
Ready to fly.
Okay, here we go. And where is it at? Where is it at? Intro in 5, 4, 3.
Hey gang, this is Masad Ayub from the Pro Arms Podcast. I'm here to remind you that our podcast is a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. And I'm going to suggest you do what we do and check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Treat every firearm as if it's loaded.
Never point a firearm at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy.
Keep your finger off the trigger until you are on target and ready to fire.
Always be sure of your target and what lies beyond it.
Hi, and welcome to the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. We're recording this one on Monday, October the 2nd, 2023. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm Charlie Cook, and on tonight's show, we'll talk with Rob Pincus about the progress bringing Avinity Arms PD-10 to market and some other topics.
I'm John Richardson, and we'll talk about Governor Kristi Noem inviting California gun makers to relocate to South Dakota. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 677 of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation starts right now. All right, welcome back to the Polite Society podcast. It's Monday night. It's slightly after 7 o'clock in the evening Central Time. It means it's time for us to do another Polite Society. Joining me tonight, John Richardson, of course, Only Guns and Money blog, and Charlie Cook, writing, and all other things with Charlie. Well, not all other things. You got to go to OnlyFans for some of that. But writing shotgun with Charlie. Gentlemen, another Monday night. We got to get into the personal news segment. John, you're up first this week, man. What have you been up to? We haven't been on the air for 2 weeks. What have you been up to, bud?
2 weeks. Well, I did miss GRPC, and I'm really kind of sad about all the friends I missed. I will, however, be at SHOT Show. I'd kind of gone back and forth on whether to attend or not due to a tight schedule in January, and I finally pulled the trigger. I bought my plane ticket, reserved my room in Vegas, got good deals on both of them. In other gun news, I renewed my Curios and Relics FFL for another $30 for 3 years. And I kind of think it might give me some protection against the excesses of the ATF, especially if I decide to sell a firearm or two. And it looks like I will be going on not one but 2 hunts in Africa next year. My brother-in-law had some buddy passes that were about to expire, which had been good for a year, and I got one to Johannesburg. It wasn't cheap, but still it's at least $1,000 less than a normal ticket. So how could I say no? Charlie? Sounds like you've been active too.
I'm just trying to keep up, that's all. I do want to talk off-air about the FFL and renewing your CNR license, because I think mine might be due as well. Anyway, a couple weeks ago, I took an intuitive defensive carbine course with our guest tonight, Rob Pincus. I went to GRPC last weekend, about a week and a half ago. I was able to crank out Riding Shotgun with Charlie 181 with Yuri Zalzman from the Philly Gun Range. This past weekend, I had a couple of Utah classes. So despite getting back from GRPC, I've still been pretty busy. Before the weekend before GRPC, I actually had the opportunity to interview Charles von Vick, who is the man that stopped a church shooting in South Africa in 1993. And as soon as I got back from GRPC, I went to the Gun Owners Action League rally on the Boston Common this past Wednesday. So just keep them busy. Paul, what's been happening with you and Susan? You guys live a wild life.
Oh, I'm telling you. Well, let me ask first of all, Charlie, did you get new riding shotguns with Charlie that'll come down the pipe in a while you were down at GRPC?
Yes, I filmed 4 shows when I was down there.
Okay.
So I was trying to figure this out earlier today. I've got 14 or 15 shows, I think, to edit right now. So I get good stock. Yeah.
So you've got 3 months worth of them in the can, just waiting for edit.
Yeah, more than 3 months. I'm not confident putting one out every week quite yet. Although I think I have the material right now. I don't know if I can, replace it soon enough.
Okay. All right. Well, on my end, of course, the weekend before this past weekend was Gun Rights Policy Conference. I was there. We broadcast live from GRPC, and we broadcast live AmCon, where you're watching this now. Had a great time down there. Not so great time coming back. That's why there has been no bullets up until tomorrow. The first bullet after I get back will be tomorrow. Susan and I, to explain a little bit, we have to tear down the entire studio to take it down and set it up down there, tear it down. Once we're done down there, bring it back here, set it back up again. When we're on the way back, we are, about 500 miles from home, and we hit a deer. The RAV4 that I love suffered enough damage it had to stay in Nebraska and get repaired. And we've got a rental car up here, and in the process of getting up here, I mean, it was just a delay in time. Couldn't get any bullets out last week, so and I know the questions are going to come. I haven't got comments in front of me yet, but I know they're going to come. No, I did not get the back strap from the deer. The deer did not hang around in the roadway long enough for me to finish him off and start harvesting. So, although I gotta say, the old saying, when seconds count, police are only minutes away. 1 hour, 24 minutes from the 911 call to when a sheriff showed up. Now, admittedly, when I talked to 911, there were no injuries. I let them know. Neither my wife and I were even tiny injured. We were both totally fine. The airbags didn't go off. We just, with the car, we've got so many electronic systems in these cars nowadays. Once I hit the car, I pulled to the side, shut it off, and there were enough damage to the sensors and everything in the car, it wouldn't restart. It was in park. I couldn't put it in neutral and push it. It was there where it's going to be. We had to get a tow truck. First, the sheriff had to show up, and then he called the tow truck. So, just lots of things going on. And Carrie Ann checking in. She says, "Glad you're okay, Paul." Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even a high-speed impact. I was doing 65, no kidding, not 66, not 67. I was doing 65 on a 2-lane road, and for the time I topped the hill, I seen it, I hit the brakes. The great anti-lock brake slowed it down to about a 20 to 30 mile an hour impact. I was not looking at the speedometer, but I'm guessing 20 to 30 mile an hour impact, but it was still an impact and still did enough damage that the car had to be repaired down there. Let's do this, guys. Let's go ahead and we're going to take a break here. Then when we come back, we've got Rob Pincus waiting to talk to us. We're going to see what's going on with Avidity Arms. Those of you who have Instagram know that Rob posted a video to Instagram earlier today. We'll talk to him a little bit about that and other things. We'll be right back to do that right after we hear from ACLDN. Right back right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. If you carry a defensive handgun, you need protection from the aftermath of prosecution. Even if you do everything right, you can be the victim of an overzealous prosecutor or even be falsely accused. That is where the ACLDN comes in. They provide immediate assistance when you need it most. If you find yourself under arrest, they immediately pay bail money and the retainer for your attorney. Additional funds are available for trial and civil proceedings. Beyond the money, they have far and away the best team in the industry, providing you invaluable information and training DVDs that are included with your membership and who stand ready to work with your lawyer on your defense. People like Masad Ayub, John Farnham, James Fleming, Tom Givens, Emmanuel Capelson, Dennis Tuller, and led by Network President Marty Hayes. Initial membership is only $135 for your first year, and you get 8 incredible training DVDs and other educational material when you join. If you don't have tens of thousands of dollars to defend yourself at your disposal right now, you need to be a member of the ACLDN. Go to armedcitizensnetwork.org and become a member today. And please mention that you heard about them on the Polite Society podcast.
All right, we are back, and joining us is, as you can see on the bottom right corner of your screen, Rob Pincus. Rob from Avidity Arms, also PD and other. If you think Charlie's a lot of on the a lot, hang on. Rob is many more places than Charlie. Rob, thanks for coming on board and joining the show tonight, man.
I am glad to be here. It's been a minute, but I've seen John recently. I've seen Charlie recently. I missed everybody down at GRPC. I had to kind of pick and choose this year when I've gone out of North Carolina and when I'm not working specifically on Avidity Arms. But yeah, I still wear the Second Amendment organization, Walk the Talk America, ICE Training Company, Personal Defense Network. I still wear all those hats too, but really have been focused on what's going on here in North Carolina. So it's good to be on the show.
So let's. I want to start tonight talking about Avidity Arms, if we could. As I mentioned going into the break, you just posted to Instagram a video today, and the focus of that video showed you doing some testing on some of the Avidity Arms pistols, the PD-10. Focus of the video was you're trying to figure out how many rounds you should test fire through a PD-10 before you send it out to ship. Any progress on that? In the video you said you were at 5.
So I guess it's a little bit social media, right? Like engagement, and the video really is about what do people think or what do people expect. So I've got a firearm that's designed for self-defense, right? That's the idea behind the all of the facets of the gun, the design specifications, everything else. Combination of the compromises that are a carry gun, carryability, shootability. Obviously, reliability has to be number one. So shipping the gun out is something that, for all the years of talking about doing it, when it came time to actually ship those first guns, the weight of that becomes a lot more real. Someone may be carrying this gun around and need to defend themselves or people they care about, and when we want the gun obviously to perform the way they expect it to. Now, we can say as many times as we want, check your hollow points that you want to carry in the gun, make sure they're reliable. We want people to go train with the gun, want them to practice with the gun, and they should obviously have that trust that the gun will earn when they need it. But you never know. Somebody may literally take it out of the box, throw some bullets in it, and take one of the holsters we have that were on the market even before the gun that were available for it, and go walk around with it. And the only live fire that has gone through the gun is what we do out here on our test burn. So that's a lot of responsibility. That's a lot to think about. So we started what I think is an unnecessarily large number. When the gun design is proven, it's been out there for years. Most gun companies are shooting 2 rounds, 2 live rounds through the gun, and you usually get those rounds in a little baggie when the box ships to you. We put 2 empty brass cases into the box with a little signature with the date and whoever tested it, whether it's me or one of the other guys on the team here. And those 2 rounds go out from that test session. Those 2 cases go out from that test session, but we were shooting 13 rounds when we started. So 1 full magazine of 10 and another magazine of 3. Why a magazine of 3? Well, my goal was to do 3 rounds, 50% more than the average company's doing with a proven gun that's been on the market. The design's been out there for years, things like that. Tens of thousands of guns already out there. But for this first year, we've been going from 13 rounds down, and we're currently at 5 rounds. And I really do think that our goal will be met within a year of starting to ship, that we'll have the design, where I can put my head on the pillow with only 3 rounds going out, and occasionally spicing that up and throwing some hollow points in or throwing something other than a standard brass case round in there. But I was curious, what do people think? What do people expect? Maybe to some extent, what would people want from a gun company? At a certain point, the gun starts to look used. So I was kind of curious what the answers would be.
Well, and
what do you guys think?
My thought there is, that you absolutely positively need the thing to go bang when things go south, but a lot of that is on the gun owner themselves. I have never bought a gun and like you described, put it in a holster and started carrying it around. I've always, when I acquire a new firearm, always before it goes on my body, it gets a couple hundred rounds through it and at least a full mag of the defensive rounds I buy for use. So I got to say, it's nice to know the gun works when it leaves the factory. I'm glad you're testing it, but I'm kind of cool with 2 or 3 rounds myself.
We were talking about this a little when you were up here in Massachusetts a few weeks ago, and you said that you guys have a machine that cycles the gun and makes sure the slide works and all the parts are working. I don't think 2 rounds is enough. I don't think 2 or 3 rounds is enough. I think 5 would be good. And I guess I would assume that they're at least doing a magazine when everything's done, just to make sure everything functions properly. But, I live in occupied territory, 13-round magazines, a high-cap magazine. and I get it ends up being a lot of ammo as well. But I don't know, 2 or 3 doesn't sound like enough to me.
The other thing, I mean, Rob, you're a nice guy, but you're not. You've got to expense this ammo out somehow. You cannot afford to dig into your pocket and throw a magazine into everybody's firearm for free.
No.
Yeah, obviously that cost gets amortized over what ends up being the retail cost to the gun, right? So that is absolutely a factor. At this point, my goal, along with getting down to 3 rounds per gun, is to maybe actually show a profit next year. To actually take some money out of the company at some point as well. So it's going to be easier to do if we're not having to raise the price, which is going to dilute the market and the number of guns we can sell. And it all balances out. I mean, the irony is I look back at like guns I've bought, right? And you guys know how it is when you're doing gun reviews and Personal Defense Network and TV. I mean, there's a lot of times where, especially like back when I was doing the Outdoor Channel stuff, the gun that we were supposed to show on the episode would show up at the range when we're going to tape the episode, and it's coming out of the box, and who's got gun oil, and do we need to take a dipstick out of the car and put a little oil on the slide just to get it going? But then there are a lot of guns out there that, I mean, I'll tell you right now, I would not hesitate. I actually had this conversation with one of our engineers here recently when we were talking about this topic a couple months ago. I said, we'll go right now. I'll take that challenge. We'll go to the local gun shop and we'll buy a mid-sized Glock. We'll buy a 320. We'll buy a Canic, and we'll buy a Springfield XD. And I bet we could pull them out of the box with no lube, no attention whatsoever, and run 50 rounds through each one of them without any problem. So in terms of what our standard is and what our goal is, it's to be there. Now, those guns have had tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of samples already run through the factory, the exact same processes, the exact same parts schematic, that everything. Those are proven designs. I don't think we're there yet. Every gun comes with the advice that we want you to lubricate it, use proper ammo and all that kind of stuff. For years I've been telling people, if you're going to carry a gun for defense, you've got to be able to shoot 100 rounds through that gun of your range ammo to make sure it's running, period. And then at least a box. I go further than a magazine. At least 1 box, if not 2 boxes, of whatever your defensive carry round is going to be. Make sure it's reliable, because that's a whole nother can of worms. Is will it feed the hollow point? And if it's plus P and your range ammo isn't, you've got to deal with all that as well. And it's as a as much as I do marketing and promotion and awareness and advocacy and all this stuff, at the end of the day, I've learned over the years, I'm not a good salesman. I'm not good at actually like closing the deal, right, and taking the money. I have the number of times in the last 9 months I've had to tell people, either in the comments or in person, when they've said, "I can't wait to carry your gun." It's like, man, I appreciate that, but don't just buy it and carry it. I want to hear, I can't wait to go to the range with your gun. I can't wait to take a class with your gun. I can't wait to work with your gun and practice enough that I trust it to defend myself and those I care about. There is that step in between that I've been advising people to do for 20 years. It's no different with my gun. If anything, it's that much more important to me that people really have practiced and gotten some rounds through the gun to make sure. I mean, the irony is that the $2,000 and $3,000 guns, people expect there's a break-in period with a hand-fit custom 1911. You buy a $590 gun and people want it to work right out of the box and expect it to, based on what we have from the major manufacturers. And we certainly hope that people are going to be expecting that from Avidity Arms as well. However, run some rounds through it in practice before you carry it.
Yeah, getting comments in. And by the way, if you want to ask Rob a question, or if you got a comment for Rob, throw it in the comments section, either on Facebook or YouTube. We'll get it up here. Aegis Gun Care says, "Good thing you ship your guns with a very high quality lubricant."
We do. We actually do. It's kind of a fun story. As the owner of a gun company, you get to do things like meet a guy when you're in Idaho on another business trip and have a beverage or two and ask him how his company's doing and say, I think we can help. We can meet. I have to send a sample. I don't want to send one of those little tear away kind of one-time use samples that end up getting all over a gun bag or something else. I want to send a little bottle. You guys do little bottles. We don't. Well, how about I buy the little bottles and you fill it with some oil and we kind of meet in the middle and I'll put one of your samples in every box. Of course, after already having learned to trust the Aegis Luber. It's a great, really clean light that doesn't build up. After sitting in a bar one afternoon to try to, he's trying to get some traction.
We're experiencing a little bit of a glitch with your feed. I'm hoping it clears up here in a few seconds. I want to get one more comment in here real quick. Sisters in Arms commented, and that's Carrie Ann. She's occasionally on the air with us, but she commented, "My gun, I know this is a little finicky with specific hollow points. Rob, I'm sure you've put just about every kind of ammo imaginable through the PD-10. Are there any that you've noticed that are more problematic than others as far as feeding through the PD-10?
If you would have asked me that 4 months ago, I would have told you, I would have been able to give you a list. Here's here's the ones that I would absolutely say trust, and here's some ones that I would say don't worry about these. Don't even try with these. What we've done is we've made some improvements, and if someone has a PD-10 out there, and we've made this announcement pretty frequently, I think, and anybody who's registered their firearm for warranty to say, hey, we have improved a couple of parts along the way, and we'll gladly take the gun back in when it's not user replaceable and go ahead and upgrade those parts to the current rev. And one of those parts is the ejector, and the change in the ejector has really helped reliability with a much wider variety of hollow points. I'll tell people where we started out. My carry round for a long time has been the Winchester bonded hollow point, and there's a couple of different varieties of them out there. There's the Defender round that used to be the PDX round. There's the W line, the Train and Defend line. I really like that one. So we've got those two rounds where we start, 124 grain plus P or 147 grain. Then from there we expand out kind of in two different directions. You've got like a Gold Dot, which is a big wide mouth, and you've got the Critical Defense, which is a real narrow hollow point that's relatively short overall length and with the little polymer insert in the cap. And both of those rounds bring some unique challenges as far as a longer round that's got a wider mouth, and the shorter round, which counterintuitively can sometimes be harder to get into the chamber because it tends to pop up sometimes and hit the roof before it finds its way into the throat. So we had some challenges at both ends of the spectrum, and the middle ground we were really good at, which makes sense. The gun's been shooting those for forever, but we really have had some dramatic improvements over just even the last, like I said, 4 to 5 months with our reliability across the board. One of the rounds I will tell you that we use for testing a lot, along with some of the typical stuff, is this XDEF from Freedom Munitions, and this round is a 147 grain round, and it's just a really wide-mouthed, long bullet. And this is the kind of thing that would have given us a lot of trouble with some of the earlier guns. And again, that's why we strongly recommend don't carry anything until you've had it go through your personal example of the gun. But we're very confident that people will be able to find something that makes sense to them, that they would trust from a major manufacturer that'll work in their PD-10. If it's not working, then we have a warranty issue, and let us know.
John or Charlie, anything else on the Avidity you want to get into?
I know some people here in Massachusetts have acquired one, but they haven't gotten it. They haven't gotten all of it through their FFL, or they're not getting all of it through their FFL. They're doing the frame transfer. I know this is, it's a much smaller market than everything else and a lot more work. But is this eventually going to be something that gets on an approved weapons roster for occupied territory states, for California and Massachusetts?
So, Charlie, this was my weekend. You see this H on this slide? Far too much of my Saturday was spent with springs and combinations of springs and more springs and extra springs and extra springs in places where springs aren't even supposed to go on this design. It's like I spent more hours since I've been back from this last trip to Massachusetts ruining the trigger on this gun. The first trigger pullometer thing I had doesn't even go up to 11 pounds. I had to get another one just so I could get to 11 plus pounds on. I got one of those digital ones now, so I'm trying. And I actually got to a combination that consistently got me 11.5 pounds, but it would also pull the gun slightly out of battery. So I didn't live fire that one. I just all right, that design's not going to work. It's so yes, my intention is to do that. Until then, the frame game. What's interesting about that is I did not. People say, well, why didn't you do that from the beginning? I have a lot of friends in Massachusetts. Going to college up in Vermont, and as much as I've taught and trained with John Green and Goal and at Cape Gunworks, so many students, so many friends that have watched the development of this gun that want it. And they ask, why didn't I just do this frame transfer thing in the beginning? Why did I keep people waiting? Well, it really wasn't until this horrendous, what was it, 4420?
4420, yeah.
Until that proposed legislation as it was originally written, which I know has been defeated and they're potentially rewriting it and all that. But as it was originally written, it did acknowledge the frame transfer legitimacy, and it created some new legislation that would try to close that opportunity for people in Massachusetts to get guns that aren't on the roster together if they can source all the parts. But with a frame transfer that is done with a 4473 through a dealer under federal law, that frame is obviously, you guys know, for those people who are watching, is not considered a firearm in and of itself in the same way at the state level, so the state roster doesn't apply. We made the decision. You see the build or die thing over my shoulder here. I do a lot of work in the gun making space, private gun making, and we do a lot of advocacy and education around private gun making, whether it be 3D printing or kits, things like that. We actually released a version of the frame to the 3D printing community for the 3D PD10. It's a change because a 3D printer doesn't work exactly the same way as injection molding. So there are some differences in that frame. It's optimized for hobby level 3D printers, and JSD Supply out of Pennsylvania sells parts kits that include the slides and everything you need for the slide. So you can, if the dealer is willing to do it, and I think more and more dealers in Massachusetts are now willing to do it because of the realization that the state is now acknowledging that it's not illegal right now, very clearly. So Cape Gunworks has been selling a lot of frames from PD10s that we ship to them complete with magazines and all the packaging just like normal. And then JSD Supply is a great source to get the slide. And it's not a problem for dealers or anyone to just go ahead and order those because those aren't a controlled item. They can be shipped across state lines, even into Massachusetts. So yeah, there are now more and more people, just over the last month, since I came to understand the new interpretation or the confirmation, I guess, of the way the frame transfers work. We have gone ahead and decided to participate in getting as many people as we can in there, getting the guns. Meanwhile, we are also working on the mass compliance, really just, I think, as a point of pride. I think it's a really bad sign when a state like Massachusetts can basically bully the gun industry into, out of bringing their guns into their state. And that's what it is. You jump through some hoops, you pay a fee, you fill out the form, and you got to wait. Well, if you're willing to put up with living in Massachusetts and you still want to exercise your Second Amendment rights, Avidity Arms wants to support you, obviously. And as you said, it's a relatively small market compared to everything else we have to worry about and bringing the next version of the gun out and the long slide and all the other stuff. But it's worth it. And not just because I have friends up there, but just on principle, I think the state should not be allowed to bully a gun manufacturer, small or large.
Very cool. Thank you.
Let me bring this into discussion then, Robin. We're going to have to run a break here real soon. But if you make your gun Massachusetts compliant, how close is that to New York compliant, to New Jersey compliant, to Hawaii, California compliant, so on and so forth?
So the states that we need to be compliant with in terms of like an actual bureaucratic process, Maryland, where we already have submitted samples, Massachusetts, and California are the 3 states that have like a process you have to go through. That process in California is impossible because it involves the microstamping. So the entire industry is not just saying we won't, we're really saying we can't. We don't think this is even feasible. So that's the deal with California. Maryland is a relatively simple process. You just submit the guns, pay the fee. Massachusetts has probably the most cumbersome process that is even tenable, and we are going through that process. Now, as far as the other states, there really isn't a specific thing we have to do, but and in this case, we have a 10-round magazine, so our magazines can be shipped there. If we had a higher capacity magazine, when we do our double stack gun, for example, the way the law currently reads in many states, we would have to ship a pinned magazine, a magazine whose capacity was restricted. Still hopeful that there'll be fewer states by the time we bring the double stack to market.
Very cool. John, you have an advantage over Charlie and I. You actually have one of these. What have you got for Rob?
Well, I pick it up for tomorrow, actually, and I paid for it tonight, so your accountant will be very happy.
Good. She loves that.
The questions I have is, and you alluded to it, future versions, the long slide, what are you looking for in the future? What's coming out sooner, and then the mid-range?
So John's other advantage, not only does he have one coming into his possession here this week, he also has been here several times. He's been to the factories. He helped out with our endurance testing last year. I think he's baiting me because he got to shoot a prototype of something that will be announced for SHOT Show last week. So I appreciate his feigned ignorance on that one. So it really comes down to what are we ready to talk about? Well, the things that we've already talked about, people have seen the intention of doing a long slide. In fact, there's some video out there of that. I think I have a really good, so like here's like a 3D printed 5-inch slide. That's going to be there. Now that's going to be the basis or sort of, I guess, the important piece of a target model. So that'll be an enhanced trigger, kind of the opposite of what I've been doing for Massachusetts. So we'll have a lighter trigger. The travel length will probably be about the same. It might break a little bit earlier, but then the reset will feel the same, but it will be a lighter trigger. Other companies do that as well, go from about a 5.5 down to a 3.5 or a 3. So we'll have a different set of sights on there, more set up with a narrower rear notch and a narrower front post, obviously to give us a higher percentage of precision, the longer sight radius. It'll shoot a little faster. I'm sure some people might want to use that in a competition format. We will also then have that 5-inch slide will be the standard slide on the double stack version. The double stack version we are shooting in a prototype version. I don't know if John's got to shoot that one, but I think he may have seen some early 3D printed versions here. So we've got that. We will be doing another caliber, which may surprise some people. I'll leave it at that. That's something that wasn't planned originally, but we are now going in 2024 to be bringing another caliber version of the PD-10 out. We've also got some other things we're working on are completely different. So we've got the expansions of the line of the PD-10, and then there have been some rifle designs, personal defense, home defense rifle designs that are, one, I think, very unique to the market, and the other not unique, but with some tweaks and some improvements, some kind of, I think, fun and cool aspects that actually will it not only be a neat thing to bring to market for me personally, with some good collaborations involved with other people who are very well established in that sector of the industry, but also some legitimate performance improvements. One in particular that I think a lot of people have seen before as a guerrilla modification on some guns, but this will be the first time I think that they've gone into production. So looking forward to that, and that's 2024, and kind of see where we go from there.
All right, we are late for break, Rob. I'm going to ask you to hang on for one more segment with us. Everybody, stand by. We're gonna hear right now from the complete combatant. Back in less than a minute. Right back after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off.
All right, we are back. This is the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. Still with us, Rob Pincus, Avidity Arms, Personal Defense Network, Walk the Talk America, and a plethora of other things. The man has more hats than almost anybody else I know. But, and Rob, I want to start with a question from a listener. You've already answered part of this, but I want to get the question up anyway, Rob. Is your geometry scalable? Are you going to make other popular calibers like 45 ACP for folks like me? And Rob, I'm really hoping before you go to the 45, I'm really hoping you go to the best caliber in the world, and that's 40 Smith & Wesson. I mean, that's...
So, I was gonna wonder what people like the commenter were, what that meant. Now I have to deal with a whole other category of people who the people clinging to the 40. I will say that 40. So this particular gun, and this may help people figure out, gee, what caliber is Rob going to do? This particular firearm is not scalable. In any efficient sense. We'd have to, we could literally scale it, but in terms of just taking this gun like a lot of companies do and changing the barrel, maybe changing the magazine, changing some springs, we can't go up. So one of the key design features of the PD-10 is its thinness, and that's why we went with a metal magazine. The slide is 0.9 inches. Some of the micro compacts out there are 1.1, and people have 1.1 versus 0.9. But that's 20%. We have a 20% increase. It's pretty significant, really, when you think about handling the gun, holding it, especially if you have smaller hands and or shorter digits. So a thinner slide than almost anything out there that shoots like a full-size gun. And the frame is 0.8 to 0.9 inches, especially where it counts around where you hold the trigger. So we really do accommodate shorter fingers, smaller hands, but the front to back, and I know we're on YouTube, I can't hold the gun, but the front to back measurement from the back strap of the gun to the front of the grip, you still have a full-size measurement on the same kind of on a 1911, so that the thinness on the sides and the contouring around the top of the grip where the trigger is and the beaver tail area give it an accessibility to, I think, the widest plausible set of human hands that could get on the gun. But that thinness prevents us from going up to 40 or 45. I wouldn't rule out the idea of Avidity Arms having something in a larger caliber, but the reality is that I don't think, from a personal defense standpoint, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages when you go up to 40 or 45, 357 SIG, any 10 millimeter, any of those things. I'm a big fan. I think nostalgically and conceptually of the 10 millimeter. I always say if I'm going to outfit a special operations team or something, at 10 millimeters where it's at. But for concealed carry, for personal defense, for people in the public space, 9 millimeter or things in that range are really, really hard to beat. So that's where this gun lives. When we get to another gun, another future design, like I said, I wouldn't rule it out. And who knows, maybe 45 gap will come back. I don't know.
Wow, there's a blast.
It could happen.
Past.
You're into 40 Smith & Wesson. I died to outdo that.
I do have another question for you, Rob. Given that this is a carry gun, I know initially you had three different holsters from three different holster makers available for it. Has that changed? Do you still have the same three?
No. So we had launch partners, TAC Rig and G Code and JM4 Tactical. They were our launch partners, and we had like 6 different holsters between them. So we had the hybrid from Tac Rig, we had outside the waistband and inside the waistband with JM4 and G-Code, and JM4 actually had inside the waistband behind the hip and inside the waistband centerline. And then we had the Phenom and the Synchron from G-Code. We now also have the Paradigm, which is an amazing, if you guys haven't seen that, I had one around here somewhere. We have confirmed that the universal fit holster, which is one of the most impressive things I've seen in a long time, the way G-Code has figured that out. That's another holster that'll fit. Creekside Consultants does some beautiful leather-wrapped Kydex holsters using some equipment that's on the market for all kinds of holster makers. They really have. They've been one of the first ones to jump in and get us holsters that are set up for weapon-mounted light or a laser, as well as red dot. All the other holsters I mentioned, they all are accepting of a red dot as well. Of course, we have a standard slide. I think something like 3% of the slides we've made are the non-optic ready. We're basically going to phase that out. The market wants the optic ready, and at this point, it doesn't make any sense for us to have 2 different SKUs as far as slides go. So everything we do is optic ready. The holsters accommodate that. Now, since then, over the years, we've had, I don't even know, Filster, Crossbreed, a lot of different companies have made holsters for the PD-10 in the prototype version or the pre-production version. Crossbreed has done some beautiful photography, by the way. If you head over to Crossbreed's website, they have officially added those holsters to their catalog now. So those have been available now for a few months. And there's a lot of regional holster companies that I'm seeing as well. I have a lot of people sending me pictures or sending me links, and we've had a couple different holster companies reach out and say, hey, we want to make this official, or is it okay with you? And I'm like, well, yeah, it's quite okay with me. So we'll be making some announcements, I think, going into November. We've got two holster companies that are coming online with a big announcement adding to their website, and as well as, just like I said, all the regional ones that local gun shops have their preferred local holster maker fulfilling the desire there. When I came to market with this gun, I really, the way I came into the training industry, 20-something years ago, was looking around and saying, this doesn't make any sense to me, and you guys can't seem to explain it, so I'm going to do it this way, and I think this is better. And that the training industry thing has worked out pretty good for me, and we've managed to, I think, be pretty influential, and we have the great relationships like USCCA that use the program, and we have instructors all over the world teaching the program. Some of that was lucky guesses. Some of it was informed as I was informed as a student that some things seemed like it would work better. And a lot of it's been developed over the last 20 plus years with our team of instructors and input from students and everything else. Now I kind of am looking at the gun industry the same way. I've asked for I don't know how many years with big companies that are incredibly well established, why are you releasing a carry gun that has no holster support? So that was one of the really overt ways that we came to the market with. You could order from G-Code, you could order from JM4, and you could order from Tac Rig, and you would have had that holster when we announced those holster makers as our launch partners. If you'd have ordered it that day when SHOT Show started, you would have probably gotten your holster before you could have ordered the pistol from the galleryofguns.com, with our distribution partner at Davidson. So getting ahead of that curve has been important to me. Things like the foam, we're working with Carolina Custom Foam, just the way we package it, right? Like the QR code to a downloadable manual, the responsibility, reminder, and the other things we put in the packaging to remind people. The manual, the way I joke, the manual, I'm considering it my 10th published book. We wrote a manual for people that actually carry guns and actually stage guns at home. I picture myself at some point, potentially being on a stand trying to explain why this stack of 750 manuals from every manufacturer you can imagine says always store guns and ammunition separately, and why does my manual say, doesn't say that? Well, it does say that, but then it says, when not in use. And we remind people that when you stage a gun for defensive use in your home, you're using that gun. And if that gun is inside something like this, well, then it should be loaded. You're not separating guns and ammo when you stage them. So we differentiate inside of our manual between storage and staging. So I really am doing some things that I just think are important and obvious, and definitely not the industry standard. Things like giving the frame to the 3D printing community and just selling them parts, and letting private gun makers make their version of the only gun our company offers, is just giving them the frame. That's obviously not industry standard, but I think more manufacturers should support the private gun making community. So, we're doing a lot of things that are, I think, people who know me aren't going to be surprised. I'm just kind of doing my own thing. But I have reasons for doing them that I think, other companies should be doing them too.
We need to let you go real soon. I've already kept you longer than I told you I would, but I really got to get to a couple things. Number one, I'm really impressed with your packaging and specifically that foam that you just mentioned. Second thing is the builder's shoot that you did a while back. Is that going to be becoming an annual thing? When does that come up next? And if you could talk just a little bit about that.
Yeah, people can go to gunmakersmatch.com. We actually had the third annual. I mean, it seems like it was just recently we were talking about doing the first one, but we actually just did the third one. We did one in 2020, one in 2021. One in 2021, which we announced in 2020. That was in Florida. We did another actually at Ancient City Shooting Range. I'm wearing one of the shirts here. We did another one in Florida the year after. And then this year, the 2023 third annual Gunmakers Match was held in Western Pennsylvania. You guys know Clint Macro. He was kind of our local host. I mentioned JST Supply, who work quite a lot. They're probably the best source for parts for private gun makers on the internet. They're in Western Pennsylvania. So they were a great, that was one of the reasons I wanted to go to Western Pennsylvania. I've worked with Clint forever. I know he knows how to run a range and he can scout a range, and we found a great one to use there. We also have we're going to do another year there. So we'll be in Western Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh. It'll be next April. We're going to be back, but you can go to gunmakersmatch.com and learn about that. And we strongly encourage people to get involved, even if they've never done it before. I know that some things that were announced just within the last 24 hours about these injunctions and the rule making and all these things around private gun making. But private gun making is still just as legal as it was before at the federal level. It all works the same way. That everything that's been done by the ATF or that they're trying to do, injunctions are against, that all affects the company 80 or 8% arms that sell and manufacture the precursors, and how those things are transferred, whether it can be mailed or can they be mailed with the rules or can they be mailed with the instructions or the jigs. That has nothing to do with the individual right, make your own firearms. So you can still get the kits. Certainly you can still do three. There's a lot of different ways to get involved in the hobby, and there's some incredible resources out there. And once again, gunmakersmatch.com. And I expect that some 3D PD10s, fourth annual Gunmakers Match. And we also do retail, gunsforeveryone.com, or Guns for Everyone National, that organization. They are the ones that work with the Gunmakers Match. They're the sanction, and Firearms Coalition has put a great deal of effort in helping us educate people in how easy it is and how it's legal in all but a handful of states, even Massachusetts. We've run 2 educational events in Massachusetts to help people get started in the hobby. And it's just, ghost guns have become low-hanging fruit, have been maligned, the private gun, with this idea of ghost scourge that's really just desperation from gun controllers that they're not going to get assault weapons banned, they're not going to get capacity to get universal background checks. So they're beating up private gun makers, and that's really the main reason we got in promoting this at the national level.
Well, we're coming up against break, Rob. Thank you again. You've given me a lot more time than you agreed to, but thanks for joining us tonight. And I know we got to have you back again soon, because I got at least 6 or 8 questions lined up here. We've got to get to another time.
Yep, it's been too long since we did this. Let's just do it. We'll do it maybe quarterly, and I think everybody knows that it's my long-winded answers that cause the time. It's not your fault, but I appreciate you guys letting me be long-winded. Some of these things are things I'm excited about talking about, and they're not simple. They're not sound bites. So thank you guys very much, John. Hopefully a range session with the PD10 this week. Charlie, thank you very much. We didn't get to talk about your performance at the class, but you did great. You put the work in.
About that.
No, he did great. And the rifle work is not easy. The rifle class is, we don't just stand, it's not sitting at a bench, it's not long range, it's in your house, around a car, it's moving with the gun and moving the gun and some unorthodox shooting position. problem solving with the relationship between the rifle and barricades and barriers. It's a fun, and Charlie did a lot of work that day, and with great classes at Worcester, Massachusetts that Bill Dalpy and John Green are hosting for me every year, and I think we're in 14 years. So next year's the 15th anniversary. Charlie, hopefully we'll see you for more than one day.
I hope so, man. That was a lot of fun too. Thank you.
All right, folks, we do have to.
All right, well, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate everything you do.
You bet.
All of it. Thank you very much. I'll see you this weekend, John. Grassroots, North Carolina.
You will. I'll see you on Sunday.
All right. We do have to step aside to break here, folks. We're going to hear from JPFO. We'll be right back with the news right after this.
It all failed before. Alcohol prohibition brought us organized crime, and no less alcohol. Drug prohibition brought us murderous, no-knock, wrong house raids.
Police! Search warrant!
No, wait! The crack house is next door!
Now gun prohibitionists want laws to lead us down that same path. Don't Americans ever learn? Just ask yourself, isn't government the only beneficiary of police-state policies? Brought to you by Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. Information available at jpfo.org.
All right, we are back. This is the news segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. We do have some comments we weren't able to get to from the social media. We're just going to go ahead. We're going to forge on here. I'm sorry we weren't able to get to all of them, but I do expect Rob won't be. It won't be a long time before Rob shows back up, so we'll hopefully have a chance for you to get to them here soon. News segment first up from my home state of South Dakota, and I did have a little bit of time today to get this set up. We're going to have our favorite AI person read our story for us because you all know I'm not that great at reading.
Governor Kristi Noem invited California gun manufacturers and law-abiding gun owners to move to South Dakota to escape California's gun and ammunition tax, which Governor Gavin Newsom signed as the first such tax in the country. Why would anyone want to live in a state where your Second Amendment rights are infringed, said Governor Noem. South Dakota has been setting the standard as the most Second Amendment-friendly state in the nation for years. Our firearms industry is thriving. Unlike Governor Newsom, South Dakota respects our God-given rights. So if you are a California gun manufacturer or law-abiding gun owner, we are ready to help you make the move. South Dakota's firearms industry has a total economic impact of $400 million. The state has the second highest number of registered weapons per 100,000 residents of any state in the nation. This is over 3 times the nation average and 7 times that of California. South Dakota's concentration of employment in the firearms industry is also 77% higher than the national average and 177% higher than California's. Silencer Central has grown from being a local business with a small office space in Sioux Falls to having a national footprint. The gun shop now employs 165 team members and sold more than 100,000 silencers in 42 states last year. They opened their new 47,500 square foot corporate office in Sioux Falls last June and have grown their staff from 17 to 175, including 120 on site in Sioux Falls. Cole TAC relocated from New Hampshire to the Black Hills, bringing with it 40 jobs. Cole TAC manufactures tactical accessories, include suppressor covers, ammo storage, hunting gear, and a variety of shooting accessories. The first bill that Governor Noem ever signed into law guarantees constitutional carry for all law-abiding South Dakotans. South Dakota was also the first state to not charge a fee for a concealed carry permit, and it is one of the strongest states for stand-your-ground laws. State and local governments in South Dakota cannot use an emergency declaration as an excuse to infringe on Second Amendment rights. And, in April, Governor Noem signed an executive order blocking state agencies from contracting with large banks that engage in discrimination against firearm-related industries. The Governor's Office of Economic Development is equipped to help those interested in moving to South Dakota. You can find more information through Governor Noem's.
We're going to go ahead and stop it there. Yeah, is that a little bit of a promotion for my home state of South Dakota? It absolutely is. But I got it out of a California newspaper.
You did?
Yes. John, you're up first in comments. I don't want to steal your thunder.
You know, you have to look at South Dakota as one of the leading states in recruiting firearms companies. It's not a new thing for them. They made the decision that they could concentrate in certain areas, and the firearms industry, excuse me, was one of the places they went. And you've got everything from Boyd's Gun Stock, Silencer Central, Parquis, which used to be called Dakota Arms, which make super high-end rifles. Used to have the Remington Custom Shop there when there was a Remington. So, I mean, as a state, you've done a great job.
Oh, yeah. And Silencer Central is, it originally was Dakota Silencer and changed its name about 3 years ago to Silencer Central. And they are just growing by leaps and bounds. I drive by their manufacturing facility. I mean, the thing is monstrous. It's almost
with the bandit suppressors.
Yeah. There are two buildings that are really impressive in Sioux Falls that have been recently constructed. One is the Amazon Fulfillment Center, which is the largest interior space in South Dakota. I think Silencer runs second to that. The office space there and the manufacturing space is just huge. It's just off of 60th Street North, about 3 miles from my house.
You know there's a North Carolina connection with Silencer Central.
I was not aware of that.
The owner is a North Carolinian by birth and was raised and educated here.
I know he lived in Brandon for a very long time before moving or that's where he started out. Was the Silencer company was in Brandon, South Dakota. Moved to Sioux Falls shortly after he started doing it, and then moved to this monster facility. And there's one south of town as well that is still open. While they were building the one here in Sioux Falls, they had a satellite operation down in T. Lots of good stuff coming from them. Why in the world, if you are a manufacturer of firearms, I can't understand why you would stay in a state that is actively trying to kill your business.
Weatherby left.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember was it Weatherby that relocated to Wyoming? I want to say Sheridan. Yeah. Okay.
Cody or Sheridan, Wyoming. Yeah. Sheridan, I think. Yeah. They did a few years ago. And they announced it at Shot.
Sheridan is absolutely small town America. It's got a population of about 20,000. So, I can understand why individuals with family ties don't want to leave states that are anti-gun. I can understand, but I cannot understand why you wouldn't want to move a business out of there if the state's trying to kill you,
I mean, I understood why they originated there. Back before California became so anti-gun, you had an aircraft industry and a machining industry that tied in very nicely with the firearms industry. You had a lot of well-trained workers. I have to say, California does have a nice climate for the most part.
Yeah.
And you had a ready market in the old days. Now, it's still a big market, but...
Well, this has been a few years ago. I remember Rob Morse bringing up there are more gun owners in California than any other state. That may still be the case. It's just that they are, as a part of the whole of the residents in California, that number is shrinking.
Right. And then there's so many Californians that are not legally eligible because they kind of cross the border not the proper way.
There is that. Charlie, anything you've been kind of quiet.
I love it. I'm sure everyone else does too. I think this is look. Obviously, I think it's a good thing, and I was thinking about this. It's very similar to the Hollywood business and the movie business and the TV business going to places, getting out of California where it's more expensive to make movies and going to places where they get a little tax incentive and they get a little kickback and they get a little, I don't want to say a little bit of freedom, but they get the opportunity to, to use more places and film shows. Film TV movie shows, and it's the same sort of thing. A number of years ago in Massachusetts, there were a ton of movies that were done here in Boston and in Massachusetts because the city of Boston, the state of Massachusetts, or Commonwealth of Massachusetts, would give people give companies incentive to come here and make movies. So why wouldn't they? It's the same. It's what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and, I want to get a couple comments in here. Let me go to this one first. Barnaby Sanchez says, gun manufacturers like a challenge. Well, Smith & Wesson, not so much. A lot of gun companies are making the exodus. Matter of fact, Spartan 6 says, yeah, Smith & Wesson did it. And then Barnaby Sanchez again, in my opinion, everything was manufactured nearby steel industry, for instance. Well, and John, you talked about this a little bit in your comment, in that there was a readily trained workforce in a lot of places where there was firearm manufacturing. And anymore, you can get training pretty much anywhere. There aren't many steel companies in South Dakota. Those are still mostly either offshore or in Pennsylvania, for instance. But as far as training, you can get any kind of training almost anywhere.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's hardly a community college anywhere that doesn't have at least one machining class.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and let's go to our next story. This story off the reload.com, and we're going to have our AI assistant read this one as well.
Maryland can't ban those with gun carry permits from carrying in large swaths of the state. That's the ruling handed down by United States District Judge George L. Russell, a Barack Obama appointee, on Friday. He found many, though not all, of the state's latest gun carry restrictions likely violate the Second Amendment. He issued a preliminary injunction blocking enforcement of those restrictions. Plaintiffs are correct that the public has a strong interest in upholding constitutional rights, and the state is not harmed by an injunction preventing it from enforcing unconstitutional laws, Judge Russell wrote in Kipke v. Moore. Therefore, because plaintiffs have shown a likelihood of success in their challenge to the private building consent rule and the regulations on public demonstrations and locations selling alcohol, the balance of the equities and the public interest tip in plaintiffs' favor as to those claims, and the court will enjoin enforcement of those provisions. The ruling makes Maryland the latest state to run headlong into further constitutional issues as it attempts to respond to the Supreme Court finding its previous gun carry restrictions were also illegal. In 2022's New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin, the High Court ruled permitting laws that gave too much subjective leeway to officials were unconstitutional, and then went on to establish that modern gun laws only clear the Second Amendment if similar laws existed at the founding. Lawmakers in Maryland and several other states affected by the decision were outraged. They proceeded to craft similar Bruin response laws that vastly expanded areas off limits to even licensed gun carriers. Those laws often barred gun carry in parks, stadiums, restaurants, transportation hubs, at protests, or even in specific neighborhoods, such as New York City's Times Square. They also flipped the presumption for carrying on publicly accessible private property by making it a crime unless the owner posts a sign allowing it. Federal judges in New York, New Jersey, and Hawaii have already found Bruin response laws unconstitutional. Now Maryland joins that list. The deprivation of a constitutional right unquestionably constitutes irreparable injury. Thus, in the context of an alleged constitutional violation, the likelihood of irreparable harm necessarily depends on the likelihood of success on the merits of the claim, Judge Russell wrote. Accordingly, because plaintiffs have shown a likelihood of success on the merits as to their challenges of the firearm restrictions in private property, locations selling alcohol, and within 1,000 feet of public demonstrations, they have also established irreparable harm as to those claims only. Judge Russell decided not to block restrictions on carrying on school grounds and government buildings and at stadiums, racetracks, amusement parks, or casinos.
All right, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to stop it there because we've got plenty of information to discuss, not just even at this part. A victory, not a total victory, but a victory there in Maryland. I find it interesting that they did not toss the restriction on carrying in schools. I think that is coming. I just don't think its time is yet. What do you two think?
They didn't in Maryland anyway. So they allowed, as I understand it, you're saying that you cannot carry in a school. Is that correct?
Right. That's right. They did not toss that. No.
No, that doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't. I mean, even in a lot of states that are either constitutional carry or shall issue still have that restriction. So that does not surprise me. What did surprise me, it's not mentioned in this article, but I saw it elsewhere. The judge allowed the prohibition against carry in state parks and state forests to stand, and I'm thinking, why? How many people are in a state park or a state forest? But then again, I mean, I do realize here in North Carolina, grassroots North Carolina had to go and get the legislature to change that to make it legal. Before that, we could not carry in a state park. So park carry was one of the things that we did get through, but it wasn't an automatic thing. Now, of course, this was way before Bruin. So,
well, and are you more, I'm going to say you're actually probably more likely to need, in a state park, you're more likely to need your firearm because there may not be as many two-legged predators because there's not many people there, but there's a lot higher likelihood of having four-legged predators. And Maryland still does have some of those around.
Well, even two-legged predators. I mean, listen to on the news tonight, a little girl disappeared on her bicycle in a state park in New York because she decided to take another loop around and disappeared. To me, it sounded like there was a two-legged predator there. There's not a lot of people around. Two-legged predators don't like a lot of people around. So
yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking the same thing. Like you could run into a bear, you could run into a bobcat, you could run into a mountain lion or something, and want to protect yourself from one of those animals. So like it doesn't make sense to me that you go to these places and you can't carry a gun.
Yeah.
A woman hiking, a woman running, jogging by herself.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a target for a sexual predator.
Get this one up here real quick. Coyote gangs. Well, I don't know the coyotes run in gangs, but they certainly do run in packs. Let's see here. Before we go to our next story, we don't have it on a preloaded read from the AI dude, but we would be remiss if we didn't mention that former senator now, at least, no, well, can senators still vote after they pass? She is a Democrat.
Only for Democrats, right?
Right.
Dianne Feinstein passed this past week. I feel bad for her family, but let's face reality. It was announced who Governor Newsom plans to nominate to fill out the rest of her term this year. We're not going to be getting a pro-gun person out of California, not while Newsom is the one in charge of nominating. But the one of our biggest opponents to freedom in the Senate is no longer going to be casting any Senate votes.
Exactly right. Though, as I said, when they were talking about her successor, I said he will nominate somebody that's even further to the left than Dianne Feinstein, and I really do believe LaFonza Butler is going to be way to the left of her.
Oh yeah.
And the funny thing is, he actually had to go to Maryland to get her. Her official residence until a few minutes ago, I think, really was Maryland, but now she's.
Wow.
But she owned a house in California, so therefore, she really is a Californian.
I could pay rent on a house in California. Governor Newsom, I'll rent a house in California tomorrow.
And you promised not to run again.
Yes,
that was his thing. Right?
It's interesting how these guys play chess with politics. I mentioned that I heard that he thought about I heard that one of the people he thought about asking was Kamala Harris to take this job so that she won't be able to run for president in 2024. Not that she should or could. No, she could, but not that she would. So it's all trying to figure things out, and it's all right. If I do this, then who's going to do this? And if this person's going to be around, they can run for president, and all that kind of stuff.
I don't know that I have to ask for permission. I do know that I don't have time, but I'm gonna see if I can't get. Yeah, I got it right there, and I want to get a comment up, and then I'm going to do something. Yep. Comment is this one. Dianne Feinstein, the expert on guns. I don't know if anybody was able to catch Eye on the Target radio from yesterday, but I'm going to run a 20-second clip out of that show. And here it goes.
6 says that Feinstein claimed that she was an expert on guns because she'd seen thousands of pictures of them. And then he went on to say that may make him a gynecologist because pictures, we'll just move on from that.
All right, yeah, that was. I gotta say, I open secret, I am the video producer for Eye on the Target Radio, and when I put that up, I did not know for sure if Amanda would read it on the air, but I knew once she started, she was going to have an issue, and that was fun.
That was great, Spartan 6. That was awesome.
So yeah, let me see what else we got comments in here real quick. Dana says, let me see if I can hit the right button. His nomination isn't even residing in California, as John was talking about. And where are we at? One more. Barnaby Sanchez says, making deals to set Second Amendment back every time it's tried. Honestly, I think we're towards the end of deal making. I really do. I think with Bruin in our pockets now, that it's going to be more of you're just going to have to comply with the law, and if you don't, we're going to sue you and we're going to take your money because these are civil rights lawsuits.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the civil right they're taking away, and they want to chip away at it, and they don't think it's a civil right, but it completely is.
Absolutely. At least on the federal level, when you sue for civil rights violations on the federal level, you can get attorney's fees. Now, that's not the entire cost of the lawsuit, but you can get attorney's fees in recompense if the lawsuit is decided in your favor. All right. Let's do this, guys. We're running a little bit long. Imagine that on the news segment. I think we're gonna skip the third story. I'll get to that tomorrow when I do the bullet. But we've got some DGUs we got to get to. And where are we at? All right. We're gonna jump to break. And have we heard? I do not believe we've heard from the complete combatant. We're gonna hear from the complete combatant. Then when we come back, we're going to combine our DGUs and our final segment into one segment. Right back for DGUs and our closeout right after this.
This portion of the Polite Society podcast is brought to you by The Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant is designed for a broad base of citizens that range from students that don't own a gun on up to advanced students that train often. The Complete Combatant offers several different courses that build upon each other, from avoidance, using verbal commands, and preparing for contact, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, your 911 call, interacting with the police, to even dealing with the legal system in the aftermath. The Complete Combatant courses are a layered approach for all levels of experience that will walk you through all the many stages of decisions while developing a game plan tailored to your skills and your everyday carry. Please visit www.thecompletecombatant.com and make sure you mention this ad to receive 15% off. Again, that's www.thecompletecombatant.com and mention the ad for 15% off.
All right, we are back. This is the final segment. This is also the DGU and final segment of the Polite Society podcast presented by the Second Amendment Foundation. These discussions are not legal advice. Some of us are trainers, but this is not formal training, and you need formal training. The defensive gun use segment is intended as information, not as training. As always, the opinions of the hosts are only their own opinions and not those of any sponsors or other affiliations. We've got 3 DGUs tonight. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the first one because I did not have enough time to program the AI to do this before we went live this morning or this evening. First one out of Phoenix, where Charlie and I were last weekend. Police were dispatched to a residential neighborhood at 10 p.m. When officers arrived about 10 minutes later, they were met by a man in front of a home. As they approached him, it was observed by the police that he was suffering from an apparent gunshot wound to his abdomen and his right arm. Eventually, the officers contacted the victim, who told the officers she received a motion notification on her security system. She then saw the man walking in front of her home. The victim stated she had exited the home and gave the man several commands to leave the area. She then ran back into the home and told her children to close and lock the door behind her. She began calling police and went to retrieve a firearm to protect herself, her husband, and 5 children. The man started to bang on a carport door. She told her children to move away from the area and hide as far away as possible. She then heard glass of the carport door shatter and saw the man's hand reach inside. She told officers she stood with the firearm and watched the man reach through the door, reach through the open, broken window and reach for the doorknob in an attempt to unlock the door. Her 13-year-old son, seeing the man trying to enter the house and his mother not firing the firearm, in fear for the safety of himself and his family, took the gun from his mother and fired toward the intruder. His shot struck the intruder. The intruder was taken to a hospital for his injuries and then into police custody. After being read his Miranda rights, Detective asked why he tried to get in the home. Yes, Rob, there were illicit drugs involved. He said he had been smoking methamphetamine with a friend and was trying to locate that friend in various residential yards. The defendant stated upon approaching the victim's residence, he heard her inform him to leave the area. The defendant stated he then approached the carport door of the residence and believed it to be his son. Despite knowing the residence did not belong to him. Read a portion of the court documents. He's now charged with second-degree burglary. She's outside the house telling the guy to leave. not armed, goes back inside the house to get armed, tells her kids to get away. Her kids do not get away. 13-year-old, after the guy breaks the glass and starts to reach in, 13-year-old takes gun from mother and shoots. This is a really convoluted one, guys.
Yeah.
I'm kind of at a loss as to what to say here.
It sounded like the mom had just frozen.
Could be.
Hey.
Yeah, for sure. This is probably also not a ringing endorsement of smoking methamphetamine.
Probably not. No.
Go ahead.
Barnaby's
got a comment.
He says, "Good thing the young man defended his family." Absolutely, and that does go a little bit to the point of, they don't want anybody. The other side doesn't want anybody under the age of 21 to even think about firearms. Well, this guy, this 13-year-old, apparently knew enough to get sights on target and pull a trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. In the way it works in Massachusetts is you can get an FID card at 15. You can take younger people shooting, but they're not supposed to have access to the firearm unless they are an authorized person. And probably a 13-year-old would not be an authorized person, particularly if they're shooting at someone. So ridiculousness of ridiculousness. There could be a possibility that Massachusetts would want to punish the mother and fine her for letting her son have access to the firearm.
Yeah, we're getting a couple more comments.
I mean, this is the bizarro world.
A couple more comments I want to get in here real quick. Unfortunately, she ultimately acted like a sheep. The sheep never believed the wolf will come. Her son stepped in and acted like a shepherd. Good on him. Hope he gets some counseling. I agree with that. That's gonna be something that I would not be surprised if leaves a few marks that need to be cleaned up.
Yeah.
Mentally. C&T says the mom's fight or flight caused a short circuit and the son took action. Good for him. Let's go ahead and, guys, I think, John, you got the Alpharetta story, right?
Yeah, the next story is from Alpharetta, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. It was closing time at a Zaxby's in Alpharetta when a 57-year-old decided it was time to rob the restaurant. The manager was leaving and he was approached by the man in the parking lot. Also on the scene was an independent witness who saw the robbery going down and intervened. Once the robber pointed a firearm at the witness and the victim, the witness drew his firearm and shot the crook. Alpharetta police raced to the restaurant and set up a perimeter. The injured criminal had run into the woods in an attempt to flee. Officers tracked his location and found him with 2 bullet wounds to the leg. He was rushed to the hospital, and once he is discharged, he will face charges of armed robbery, aggravated assault, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. Georgia law does allow for the use of reasonable force to protect yourself and third parties. Alpharetta police believe this is a defensive gun use of a third party. I'm glad he was there and was able to stop him. People do stupid stuff and there are consequences, said Angie Trapina, who was another Zaxby customer.
Zaxby's, for those of you who may not be familiar, who may not be from the Southeast, because that's exclusively where Zaxby's is. It's fast food. It really is. It's fast casual, but this is not. You're not putting on a shirt, tie, and jacket to go there. That's for darn sure.
Right.
It's like Raising Cane's in the Midwest.
Right. You do want to take your not take your pajamas off, but not wear pajamas.
Yeah.
It's not like Waffle House.
No. It's a little bit more upscale, but not by much.
Right. Yeah, because they close.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I gotta say, I did make it to a Waffle House when we were going down to Phoenix. I just wish there were more of them up. The closest Waffle House to me is about 5 hours, 4.5 to 5 hours south of me. Yeah, I wish there were more Waffle Houses up here. I would frequent them, but yeah, not so much.
This is so funny. It's Sunday morning at GRPC. It's 6:25 in the morning. I'm waiting for Rob and Amanda to come down to go out for breakfast. Eric Friday from Florida comes up to me. He says, "I heard Charlie Cook knows where a Waffle House is." I said, "You heard right. Stick around, boy. Let's go."
I'd seen Eric about 30 seconds before that because Eric and I had a very, very short conversation down in the lobby, and Waffle House got brought up then too. But yeah, must have been as I hit the elevator, you were coming out.
Yeah,
so
it was funny.
And I have two of them within 2 to 3 miles.
Nice.
I want to, and this is ever since I've been down to Gun Rights Policy Conference. This has kind of been in the back of the head circulating. Where was the Waffle House located that had Waffle House Wendy in it, who caught the chair midair and just kind of stared down?
Oh, God. Where was that? Was that Georgia?
Sounds like it.
That woman, I swear, my understanding is this happened a couple years ago. She has lost her job at that Waffle House since then. She's moved on from that Waffle House since then. But Waffle House Wendy, I will find you a job up here. There's a lot of places you can work. I think it
was in Texas. I think it was Texas.
Okay.
I'm trying to find out right now.
Same here.
But I'm getting all these stinking ads.
Welcome to Google, my friend. Welcome to Google. We'll see if the
Austin, Texas.
Austin. Okay.
Yes. There we go. I think it was Austin, Texas. That's what I'm seeing real quick.
Okay,
right,
guys. I'm not gonna read this one, but I got to put it on the screen, and it's very, very true. For those of you who are catching us on podcast, tune in to I'll go get this one off the internet, or tune in to us live sometime. But that's an absolutely true statement.
I did see some picture. I think it was yesterday morning. It was like 4 pictures of people at a Waffle House with like a chest protector on that said Waffle House on it.
I saw that. Yes.
Yeah, and there was a tank in front of one of the Waffle Houses, and they said they're about to do the 3rd shift at Waffle House. I'm like, dude, that's great.
The other one I'd heard recently is that Denny's is just Waffle House for those who don't know how to fight.
There we go.
So,
Robin Sandoval was telling me she's got a stage at her A Girl and a Gun conference this weekend where it's the Waffle House Shootout. That's what they called it.
Okay.
So that was, yeah.
All right. Well, Charlie, you've got our 3rd DGU, man.
All right, a 16-year-old and another man arranged to meet a 3rd man in the parking lot of the Planet Fitness at 12 Mile and Van Dyke, and this is in Warren, Michigan. The 3rd man had brought a friend with him. They were attempting to complete a Facebook Market transaction. It was shortly after 8 p.m. in early September. The 16-year-old pulled a firearm and attempted to rob the pair. Unfortunately for him, one of the pair was a CPL holder and a practitioner of Pogo, pants on, gun on. He responded by shooting the up-and-coming criminal in the chest. The injured thug was transported to the Ascension Macomb Hospital and later to St. John in Detroit for treatment. Warren Police Commissioner William Dyer said statements from the witnesses and the incident are under investigation. Your decrepit DCU writer Dana happens to know there are numerous cameras around the parking lot area as well. He happens to live about 2 miles from the scene of the crime.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for including that information, Dana. I hope you're still watching. I haven't seen you comment for a little while, but John, you've got to. I want you to get this comment because your comment is very prescient. I want that comment up first before we.
And this, I mean, it originally started with Craigslist, but now Facebook Marketplace. You know, a lot of police departments suggest and welcome you to do these exchanges at their station or at least in their parking lot. In other words, a fairly safe place that's under surveillance and where there's help immediately available. Because, you know, this was a very common thing, or has been.
Nationwide, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I saw something on a Facebook Marketplace a couple months ago. It was this story where this guy says, I caught my girlfriend cheating and I bought her a PlayStation 5 and I'm giving it away for free. So if you want to take the PlayStation 5, I want to get rid of it because like I'm getting rid of her. And I saw this on like 2 or 3 different town community pages. So I'm like, well, it seems a little sus to me.
Oh yeah, that's a show up and get robbed thing right there.
Yeah.
Dana is still watching. He put a couple comments in. He said he ate dinner at the Applebee's at that site last night. So, yeah. I'm just gonna say, folks. Again, good on the intended victim or one of the intended victims for practicing pogo. And the one common theme through all of our DGUs tonight: get some practice. Make sure when you do have to pull that trigger, that shot goes exactly where you intend it to, not low and left. It's no good generally to hit somebody in the left leg. If you're aiming for center mass, let's make sure the bullet hits there. Let's go ahead and go off to our final segment here, and we're not going to do an ad. We're just going to go. Normally, I would ask Rob what's been up on Slowfax, but Rob's not here tonight. So, John, what's been going on over at Only Guns and Money, bud?
Well, you know, if you follow Willis Lee, who's former NRA first vice president, you've seen a lot of his postings on social media. Many have been very critical of the NRA and its leadership. You know who else has seen them? The New York Attorney General's office, and now they want to depose him again. They basically were saying, you said one thing before, but that doesn't agree with what your Facebook post said. In other NRA news, the list of official nominees for the 2024 board election has been released. 25 out of the 28 nominees are already on the board, and 23 are repeats from 2021. New blood indeed. In other news, New Mexicans to prevent gun violence think painting wall murals will solve their problem. They were really touting the 14th one they've done. Whatever. Finally, Congress passed and Biden signed H.R. 5110, which will override the Department of Education's denial of funding for archery and hunter education in schools. The Safari Club International also has a lawsuit. I think that's probably now going to be moot, but 424-1 and unanimous consent in the Senate sounds like Biden more or less had to sign it.
Yeah,
and more. Go ahead.
And what a big friggin' oops! How bad does it have to be when you have to sign legislation that goes against what you told the ATF to do and what you told the Department of Education to do? Now you've got to sign that bill. Oops.
Well, I read the bill. Actually, wrote about it, and it's more than just archery and hunter education. It's culinary classes. What do cooks use? Cooks use knives. Knives are weapons. So they had to make sure that they were protected as well.
You know, if you're Britney Spears, knives are just things you dance with.
That's true. And so that's why that and more is at onlygunsandmoney.com.
All right. Charlie, what do you got, man? What's coming up on Riding Shotgun? Anything else you want to promote, bud?
I want to say that last week I put out a show with Yuri Zalzman, who runs the Philly Gun Range, and he's got a pretty interesting story. So that came out last week. If you want to check it out, this weekend I am heading down to the Tommy Gun Warehouse for the Rod of Iron Freedom Festival this weekend, and I think I have some duties that I'm doing there. I'm also going to get a chance to hang out with Rob and Amanda, which is always going to be fun. And I'm very sure we're doing a concealed carry fashion show. So Rob likes to concealed carry a sandwich while we're at these, which is cool. And then next week is going to be a riding shotgun. And I think the show is going to be the NRA Museum Director, Phil Schreier. I got a chance to catch up with him this summer and film a show with him down in Virginia. So that'll be coming out next week. That is what I've got going on.
All right. I got to get that comment. But I'm also not going to read that one for podcast listeners. You got to join us on the air. But another great comment that I've got up on social media, up on the screen right now. I got to say, that does wrap up another episode of the Second Amendment Foundation's Polite Society podcast. I'd like to thank Rob Pincus for joining us today. So for Amy, Dana, John, Susan, Amanda, Charlie, Carrie Ann, and Rob.
Until next time,
stay safe, be aware,
and we'll see you down the road.
The views and opinions on the show you just heard are those of the host and the guest and are not necessarily the views of any sponsors or other affiliations. But hey, not everyone is as smart as we are.
All right, we are done with recording. Basically going to be no post-show tonight. I need to get in the other room. I've been sitting in this chair for almost 4 hours. I've got a very full bladder that I got to take care of. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this down. Everybody who's watching, thank you for watching. And please do come join me tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central Time, for another edition of The Bullet. Thanks for watching.